So what I want to do here is show you how to put a tabbed zipper into, I'm working on a little pouch, zipper pouch here, like the Flower Power pouch, okay? This zip is exactly the same length as the pouch I'm working on. I think it's a 9.5 inch square I started off with. But what you'll see is that at each end you get a gap, because the zip, if you like, does not go end to end. The teeth do not go end to end. So you have these little gaps at each end for the beginning and the end of the zip. And on these little gaps you have, and I'm using this one because it's really obvious, you have either metal or plastic stoppers. Older zips tend to have metal on. A lot of modern ones will have plastic ones. Now obviously this is going to be tricky if you hit this with your needle trying to stitch across it. So what we want to do is try and avoid that. Okay, so the answer is to put little tabs on the end. Okay, and what this is going to do is, if I fold these back, I've only pinned them for a minute, is I've now got, put it over the right way, there we go. So there's the top of the zipper. I've now got no gaps here at either end, okay? And I can also make it very slightly longer. So if perhaps my zip was just a little bit too short, shy of where I wanted it to be on my bag or pouch, then I can use these tabs to actually make it much longer. So it's quite useful, this technique, for say putting in a pocket into the inside of a bag where you might want it to be a small zip but a slightly bigger pocket underneath, for example. So what I've done is I've cut these, I've got two little rectangles at each end, and the zip is sandwiched in between these two rectangles. Okay, what I have done is I have pinned them right sides facing with the zip in between, but I've gone beyond this metal point here, okay, so that when I stitch across here, hang on, I'm looking around desperately for a pencil or a pen, there we go. So when I stitch along here, hopefully you can see this, usual thing, sorry guys, hands in the way, there we go. When I stitch along here, I'm missing this bit completely. When I fold it back and top stitch, I'll come in close, so again I'm missing that point, and it just means that at every point when I sew this pouch together, I don't have to deal with this end, or equally the same thing, the stopper at the other end. At this end, what you need to be wary of is you need to open your zipper, because you can't have the zip pull right up here because it's going to get in the way. So I've opened the zipper up, but I have double pinned. I've done it horizontally, but normally I would do it this way. Is that your horizontal or your vertical? I don't know, but you can see what I've done. Normally I'd have the pins going this way, but I kind of want to show you the stitching line as well. And again, I've come down below this little metal stop point here, okay, but I've double pinned it because I need to hold these two bits of zipper tape as close as possible, because otherwise I'm going to have a little gap at the end when I actually sew my zipper in. Now I'm going to use a different colour cotton here. As you can see, the colour coordination of the zip tabs, etc., is not great, but hopefully you'll be able to see better what I'm doing. So I'm just going to do straight stitch across here, okay, and it should run over. Most machines will run easily over a zipper. If it's got big metal teeth, then you might need to be a little wary and lengthen your stitch out. So I'm now going to run across, oh sorry, I keep putting that, try and do that from the top. There we go. It's too much multitasking, all of this, you know. It's making my brain hurt. There we go. All the way across there. Okay. So that I can now flip those back on both sides. And I'd normally press it back at this point, will make it easier, but I'm not going to do that. And then I'm going to come in and top stitch, and you can either move your needle or just position it, but you'll see I've come in a lot closer because I want to avoid, and I can feel it here, that lumpy old bit there, and I'm just top stitching this down to hold that in place. So there we go. Let's see if I can come in a little bit closer to show you what I'm doing here. There we go. So get the hand out of the way because sometimes that's not helped at all. So as I say, I could move my needle across, which we have done before, and you do that on your width setting on a straight stitch. I'm going to keep on saying that through every video. You're going to get sick of me saying it, so that I can stitch across. And like I say, you'd hear if you hit anything under there, but all the nasty bits, if you like, are out of the way. So you end up, and I'm going to come back out, there we go, you end up with 2 tabs like this. Okay, when you now come to put those on to the top of your pouch, they're going to overrun. I've made them too long and they're too wide, and I want to do that because it's a darn sight easier to see that you're going to catch all of this in, because none of this is going to be seen once we put the lining on top, because we're sandwiching that zip in between the main part of the pouch and then the lining. So if you've got these tabs hanging out over the end, you can make sure that you are catching everything in, because there's nothing more annoying than doing all of these processes, turning your zipper pouch inside out and suddenly realizing that actually you've missed a bit here. Okay, because it's a bit torturous to then try and go back in. So I have got, if you think of it in terms of right side to right side, so the zipper pull is here. Again, let me lighten that up so you can see. There we go. So the zipper pull is the right side of the zip. So I've got the right side of the zip to the right side of the pouch. I would measure to even it up, so make sure the zip is in the middle. Okay, so that the top of the zipper tape is at the top of your pouch, and then, hopefully without throwing it everywhere, I would then put the lining on top. Okay, so this is what I mean about everything being sandwiched, so that you can't actually now see what is going in, and then go in and pin, and I'm going to pin across. As you pin across, you'll feel the lumpy bit where the zip pull is open. Okay, and I'll tell you what to do about that in a second. Okay, so I want to make sure that all of these 3 layers are at the top and matching. So have a look on the back to make sure that it's all where it should be on the back as well. Okay, so that when you stitch across here, it's all going to match. Now, I am a lazy sewer, I say this all the time, but zips I always baste or tack, whichever expression. So I'm going to go in, and where I've pinned, I'm going to tack across. And the reason for doing this is that I always find with zips, they can be awkward, especially when you get to the knobbly bit, which we're going to come across in a second. And you cannot avoid the knobbly bit when you're putting in a zip like this. Where is it? Oh, it's up here. Keep going. There we go. So I'm going to take the pins out as I go, and you can see where I'm stitching. This line as well, you probably can't see as I'm going, but I can feel that the teeth of the zipper, actually you might be able to see, look, if I do that, that's the teeth of the zipper. So I'm making sure that my basting, my tacking is coming to the top of those teeth, because that's also going to give me a really good idea of where to sew when it comes to actually sewing with my zipper foot. Now as I come up here, I can now feel, look, there's a big old lumpy bit there, and at this point go in and you'll see, look, can you see there's a slight distortion on the tape there, and that is because you've got that lumpy bit. So at this point I'm going to make sure that I'm tacking that tape in the right place, so that even if the knobbly bit messes me around, if you like, the tape is in the right place and is going to stay put. If you've got pins and things like that, it can just make it so much harder to actually sew. You're thinking about, oh my goodness, I've got to take the pins out, the pins might move. And pinning does not hold things. It's great, but on certain things you really want to hold things so they do not move, because all that's going to happen if you don't take the time to do this, you'll end up having to unstitch it and redo it because you may well have missed a bit. So for how long did that take me? Look, a couple of minutes. Good old bright double thread with a knot on the end. Didn't take that long. Okay, no nuns are going to come and check your stitching. So I can check on the other side, make sure, like I said, everything's been caught, and when I open this up, then you can see, because this is what's actually going to happen, is that's going to get flipped back because we are lining the pouch at the same time. So it's slightly different to when we've done like bags and things like that. Okay, so this is what's going to happen. At this point, you can go in with your zipper foot and stitch over your tacking. I know my tacking's quite firm and I've just checked it and it's nice and straight. So I'm actually can then just go in with the zipper foot and top stitch on the top here, so I can lose one of those processes if I want to. Okay, so let's have a look at the zipper foot. I've got two here. This is the one that belongs on this machine. So your zipper foot will either look like this, which is quite narrow, okay, or you may well have one of these. These are probably the more common one these days, where it will go on either side. Okay, so the little bar that attaches to your press foot here, if I drop that one off, it will sit either on the left or the right. I've got a choice there. I'm not going to put that one on because it's for the wrong machine, so it's the wrong size. This one has just got one bar, and I just need to make sure, always make sure that your needle is not hitting any part of this foot. Okay, so remember, with the width you can move your needle. There are actually 3 holes. Let's go in again for a little bit of a close-up. There we go. So there are actually 3 holes in this foot here, one in the centre, one to the right and one to the left. So at the moment my needle is sitting over to the right. Okay, so if I'm top stitching here, it's going to sit, if I drop the foot down, you'll see it's going to sit here. The needle is coming in there, and then I can run it nice and neatly all the way along to the end. Okay, once I've done that process, and I'm not going to do that process because I'm going to have to undo this in a minute, because I've said before that I'm struggling on zips here during lockdown. I've ordered some, but they still haven't arrived. I'm going to show you how to put the other side on, because the other side of the pouch you do exactly the same thing, but because you've now got all of this going on down here, it looks a little bit weird, but you are actually doing exactly the same process, but with all of this sandwiched in between. Okay, so actually I just realised I do need to run this along, because what I should show you, you might want to see, is what to do with the zip pull. I know I've shown this before on other zipper videos, but where's that come from? We have a thread. There we go. So as I stitch along and come up close here, I'm going to miss this. If you're not missing this because you've got a bigger zip pull on here, and because this is such a narrow foot as well, where's the other one? If I was on this foot, for example, I might find, because it's slightly higher here, I might find that it's going to knock that, in which case needle down, lift your presser foot, swivel it round slightly. You can get hold of that, take that out of the way, swivel it back so you're back on the straight. The key is to keep your needle in, because then you don't get a jump in the seam as you stitch down, so I can then carry on stitching down. One extra foot that I always recommend, that with a lot of the new machines you don't get, you get that zipper foot I've just shown you, the sort of T-shaped one, is what's called the adjustable zipper foot, and that's really, really useful. It's got screws on it, and it's more like this one in its shape, in that it's really, really narrow, and you can use it for piping as well, and I absolutely love that foot. So there we go, that's all top stitched. Make sure that your zipper is running free. Okay, the thing with top stitching here is it's going to hold these bits back, more so the lining, so that it's not going to catch in the zip. There's nothing more annoying, you know, like when you've got a coat or something and the lining keeps catching. The way to solve that is actually to just go in with a needle and thread and stitch this down. Sometimes it's because it hasn't been top stitched out of the way far enough. So have we gone back again? Yes, we have. There we go. So to now put the second layer on. So again, right side, so I've got the right side of the zip here, right side of the pouch, right side of my other bit is going to face here to the top of the zipper tape. I'm going to flip it over, and then right side of the lining is going to sandwich it in between. So like I say, all done exactly the same as it was before. I'm going to try and line everything up so that all of my layers are layered, and remember that these little tabs are overhanging. Pin it across. Sorry if this is a bit tedious, Gold, but although I've done written instructions, I do think this is one thing that actually is really difficult sometimes to get exactly what is going on from written instructions, even with pictures. Once you've kind of got your head around it, it's fine, but I think the first couple of times everyone looks and goes, I don't really quite get it. So we're pinned in place. Check that we've caught everything on the other side, and then if I flip this open just to double check, I can see, look, my zip here, and on the underneath the same thing. So I'm flipping it back, so I've now got this opened up pouch, so I've got the lining, same thing. Okay, so you are doing exactly the same process. It just looks weird because you've got all that stuff going on in between, but your zip is going to open like that. Okay, the next part of the process to remember is when we come to sewing down the sides, which is a bit more obvious in the pictures. At that point, we then put right sides to right sides like so, with the zipper tab in between. This isn't going to sit quite right because I've still got the pins in there, but at that point I normally would fold these tabs so that the zip is, and fold them both in the same direction, so both bits of the tab are folded here. Okay, and once I've done that, folded it and clipped it, pinned it, I can then trim off all this excess here, because I know it's all sewn in now, so I don't need any of that, so I can trim that away. Okay, so I'm hoping that that makes sense and will help you with the zipper on the pouch.